4th Congressional District candidate Julie Hall is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. This retired Air Force colonel has very high expectations in the race for Congress in the state's 4th District. Can she flip a Democratic stronghold from blue to red? Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR on this Sunday morning. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. It's great to have you with us, and we do welcome Republican congressional candidate Julie Hall into our studio today. And again, respecting all social distancing protocols, we are making the most of our large space here in Studio C. Safety first in this time of COVID-19. In 2014, Julie Hall was named Outstanding Woman Veteran of the Year in the state of Massachusetts, a retired Air Force colonel with 3 decades of service. She has also served as a city councilor in Attleboro. Thanks for joining us this morning, and thanks for your service. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
So, Colonel, as a veteran, many voters in the 4th may be curious about your reaction to President Trump's comments about military service. He denigrated John McCain for being a prisoner of war. He's publicly bragged about evading serving, and he's demeaned soldiers killed in combat. So we're sort of interested. What's your reaction to all of this?
You know, I don't believe that was said. I look at what people do, and the president has been nothing but supportive of the veterans and of the military. And I recall back, I was listening during the Christmas holiday seasons that he was calling around to some of the ships, some of the people that were out deployed in not the big bases, you know, actually reaching out. And I kept thinking how honored I would have been if I was in one of those places and the president had reached out to me as a commanding officer. And when I say commanding officer, if some of these places that are out there, you're talking about a major or a captain. And what a thrill it would be for them to have that happen. So I think he's very supportive of the military and the veterans, and I don't believe that that was ever said.
But what about denigrating Senator John McCain? He did say that publicly, as well as publicly bragged about the fact that he evaded service, the draft. What's your reaction to those two, at least specifically?
Well, I think that there's always been a little bit of rub between John McCain and President Trump. So, you know, again, I think that things get taken out of context oftentimes, and I think that they get spun. The best thing I can tell you is I believe that this president has been nothing but good to the veterans.
So, and let me ask you just flat out, are you going to endorse the president for re-election?
I vote for President Trump because I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm big on economy. I grew up in a very large family, and when you come from a very large middle-class family, you learn from a very early age how to stretch a buck, so to say. So I don't think I could be anything but a fiscal conservative. So I look for the person that I believe is going to do the best things for the economy and to bring us through that, and I believe that President Trump is that person.
So here in Massachusetts, if you can give us a little more clarity, do you see yourself, for example, as a Charlie Baker Republican or a Donald Trump Republican, if you understand the difference that we're
Sure, I sure do. You know, and I've been asked this question before. I'm a Julie Hall Republican, and that's the thing. I'm not here to represent either of those two people. I'm here to represent my district and to campaign for my district. So I consider myself to be my own person, very confident, comfortable in my own skin. I make my own decisions.
Your top priority, according to your website, is getting the economy back on track,
yes.
Getting people back to work. And you also say less government is better for business.
That's correct.
But do you think another round of federal stimulus money from the feds is needed right now, especially for small businesses, as well as unemployment for those who have been out of work all this time?
Yeah, I do. And I think this is a special circumstance. And I've been talking about, like, people say, hey, you know, competition. First of all, competition is good. And you want people to use the free market. We want all of those things to work. But here we have a very special situation where people are not able to go to work. So I think we need this. We need the government in this particular case to reach out and to be able to give us a little boost, I guess. Then they need to get out of the way. So let people get back to work.
So you're saying more money for small businesses, big businesses, and unemployment, all three?
I think the money for, I like the targeted, and I've said this before when they were just sort of giving money out to everybody. I believe the target towards the small business is much more in line with my platform. I'm a huge advocate of the small business. I think that the small business is what makes America great. I'd love to see them get back online. I think they got hurt the most. So I'm an advocate of the targeted stimulus package to the small business. I can't be more overjoyed to see this.
What about the individual at home?
I'm sorry?
The individual at home, should more money be again contributed to that?
Yeah, I think just giving money to people is not the right thing to do. I think there needs to be some criteria, for people to get that money at home. I know that I've talked to business owners. It's caused them a lot of difficulties because some of their people are making more money being at home than coming to work. And, that just exacerbates the problem of not having somebody there to help you if you are trying to get your business back online. So it's sort of had a little bit of a perverse effect to what I would like to see, which is helping those small businesses get back on track. If you don't have the people to help you get back on track, it's going to be a problem.
Let's talk about health care. You don't support Medicare for all. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
So, but you think that the current system, which is essentially Obamacare, needs to be changed?
Yeah, and I want to clarify that. I don't support a 100% national health system. I was a hospital administrator in the military. We are one of the largest 100% taxpayer-funded systems in the world, especially in the United States. And I can tell you from my own experience, our costs kept going up. So that's not the answer. I think that was a difficulty, and people also had concerns about, they were always complaining about the quality of care and the fact that they couldn't get access. So having a nationalized healthcare system is not the answer. What I see at first is we need this hybrid system, but we have to start introducing competition. Even in the military, they wanted to save money. I was asked as a military hospital administrator to go out and compete, my group being military members, as a healthcare system, and go out and compete them in the free market. And I did very well, and I saved the government billions of dollars. And what happened is they were able to give me that money back. I turned that money back into more technology. I opened up some operating rooms. We brought in even more. I was able to go out there and contract with civilian providers. So here it is, a government, 100% taxpayer-funded system, and we're still using the free market. So that taught me something. The other thing is technology. One of the things you lose when you move towards a government-controlled system or a socialized medical system, you have got to make a profit. There's no such thing as a nonprofit organization anymore. That's why they changed the names to not-for-profit, because you have to make a profit. You have to create wealth. You have to generate revenue in order to put that revenue back into the system. So that is what I see as the right thing to do. Now, I want to move very slowly as we bring this market in, because we do not want under any circumstances, anybody being harmed by some of the decisions that are made. So I'm not, and I guess that's the difference, I'm not a person that likes to move very quickly, because I feel that you don't think things through enough, and we absolutely do not want to hurt anybody as we move towards a free market system.
So recognizing you don't want to move too quickly, if you can keep it yes or no, let me ask you two questions. One, should everyone be mandated to have insurance?
No.
Number two, should most businesses be required to provide insurance?
Yes.
Very good.
What's your assessment of President Trump's handling of the pandemic so far?
I'm sorry, because I can't hear.
Give me your assessment of how President Trump has handled the pandemic.
Okay. And I talk about all the three letters, the CDC, the NIH. I mean, you get the best information from the people around you. I think he's done the best that he can with the information that he's been given by the folks. I also, again, I worked with the public health system, so I do know what their mission is. I was a little bit disappointed, and it's not their fault. They've been underfunded for quite some time, but the public health system needs to play a bigger role in this. They were the ones that I actually did a contract with them when I got out of the military, and one of my jobs was to teach them how to respond to just this kind of a pandemic. And we taught them how to go find buildings of opportunity, how to set up a field hospital. And I said to myself, here I am now, what happened? what happened to the equipment, what happened to the beds, what happened to all the public health systems. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, knowing what I know.
But when you hear the president and the scientists at these agencies directly contradicting one another, who are you more likely to believe, the scientists or the president?
That's a good question. I think, if it was me and I'm a leader, I believe people question leaders quite a bit. I know people question Charlie Baker quite a bit. I'll bring up that name. So Charlie Baker, as the leader, has to take all the information and filter that information through. Oftentimes, and I've been a leader, so I know that oftentimes you get information that other people don't get, and you have to make a judgment call based on the information that you get. So I would be more inclined, especially since the experts, quote unquote, cannot come up with one single. I mean, you hear different things all the time. The mask is helpful, the mask is dangerous. I mean, all of these things. So I would be willing to go with the person who's getting all the information, and that would be the president.
Julia.
And speaking of masks, I know you showed up with a mask. You had your mask on up until the very last minute, just before we started this show. Do you wear a mask when you campaign? Do you wear a mask most of the time when you're out in public?
When I'm out in public, if I'm away from people, the requisite 6 feet, I don't wear a mask. I wear a mask because I believe that that's the only way we're going to keep our businesses open. There's been some very, very strict mandates put on our small businesses. I am an advocate of the small business. I do it for them if that's what is required. I think, again, I've worked in a hospital for 30 years. I probably have caught everything that you could possibly catch. And, I've gotten, when I went in the military, God only knows what they were, giving me immunizations for. So I don't have as much as that kind of fear. I've seen this thing before. I think it needs to pass. The thing that's different with this particular virus in my mind is it goes so quickly that people that are not as healthy are going to be the ones. If you look back at polio, though, that was a whole different situation. This is not that. To me, this is a virus. This is just a super flu. It really is bad that people are passing away, and that's a really horrible thing. And but I think the mask, here we are wearing a mask, but yet I'm still passing money back and forth. And I remember being a young girl, and what your parents said is, don't put that in your mouth, don't put that. Right. Yet we're still passing this stuff back and forth. I can't.
But you wear the mask in public, right? Yes, you do. Right?
I do. Yeah. I do.
Julie Hall is with us. We're back in a minute.
Yeah. I don't, and I don't wear it all the time, but I do wear it when I'm going into a business that's required to do that. But if I'm out for a walk by myself or I'm with people and we're, maintaining the requisite distance, I do not wear the mask.